Hello there, I want to carry on talking to you a little bit more about human movement habituation and how important it is to understand a little bit about our habits. But before I go on and talk to you about that, I'd just like to go back a little bit and explain how movement works in the human. We are really quite highly skilled in terms of the animal chain, in terms of our movement patterns. If you think of all of the different kinds of animals there are, if you think to the fish, as the fish swims through the water, it can make certain movement patterns. If you think of a frog jumping, if you think of a lizard moving its limbs in this sort of pattern from side to side, as we go through the movement chain, as we go through and we come to four-legged creatures like lions and tigers and elephants and dogs and cats, etc. All of the movement patterns that those animals make, we have, if you like, reflections in the way that we use ourselves. We are four-legged creatures. We've got two limbs at the top and two at the bottom and a spine in the middle. And if you were to actually look at the skeletal system, the skeletal structure of, say, a horse, what you'll find is there is a relationship. Not exactly the same number of bones, not exactly the same structure and shape. So, for example, a dog or a cat doesn't walk with all of its bones down on the floor. They walk on their toes. But a lot of the movements that we make have their ancestry in our ancestors, in our four-legged animal friends, if you like. So when we move and we use ourselves, we still tend to replicate those opposite movement patterns. Opposite hand coming forward with the opposite leg when we walk, when we swing. Our hands as we walk, we tend to do opposites. We don't walk the same side, so we don't have left arm coming forward with left leg. So there are certain, if you like, reflex movement patterns, hardwired movement patterns that we're born with. Everybody's seen the stepping reflex. When you pick up a little baby and you put them on a hard surface, they will automatically step their feet. Little children, if you take them swimming when they're very young, they will automatically breath hold when you put them under the water, and they will swim. So there are certain reflex patterns of movement. But most of the movement that we do when we are a mature, functioning adult, as I've already said before in a previous podcast, these come from habituations. So we start off by exploring the way we can move, say, a limb through space. One of the first things that we need to do when we begin to start to learn how to move ourselves is how to control our limbs. So, for example, if I put this pen just here, actually no, let's use this because you'll probably be able to see it. There we go. If I put something here like this that's sticking up, and it'll stay there. Okay, just keep it there. If I reach out with my hands, I know exactly where that is in space. I can look, I can tell where it is, I can reach out, I can touch it, I can even close my eyes, and I can do it because I know exactly where it is in space. We have to learn how to tell where things are in relation to our body. So when we learn how to move, these things don't happen naturally. These are things that we develop. So as a small child, you will learn how to make a nice, smooth movement trace through space. You will be able to look at something, you will be able to see where it is, and you will be able to reach out and touch it. If I wanted to reach out for a door handle, I'd know where it was and I'd find it in space. How do we learn how to do that? Well, at first we learn through trial and error. If you've got children and you've ever watched them trying to feed themselves, you know that that spoon can end up everywhere. So as the child is trying to feed itself, the spoon is hitting its cheek, it's hitting its chin, it's going on its nose, it's being tipped over before it goes into its mouth. But the child has a determination. The child wants to learn how to feed itself, wants to be able to pick things up and do it by itself. So there's a driver, there's some sort of motivation there that enables the child to want to learn how to do things. So after all this trial and error, after all this messing around, eventually the child manages to get the spoon into his or her mouth. What happens? It happens the first time once in 20 attempts, once in 50 attempts. But after the child has tried and practiced, eventually after a few days, it's doing it twice or 3 times in 50 attempts, until eventually you just can put something in your mouth. It's easy. You know how to do it. You know where your mouth is, you know where your ear is, you know where the top of your head is, you know where your nose is. You just know where all these things are. Why? Because you've practiced and it becomes a habit. And the more you practice it, the better you get. So some of the things that we do with habits are very important, and that is why we get into, if you like, such a set pattern and way of doing things. Because once we've learned how to do something, then there's no real reason for us to go back and learn again. But what I'd like to do is introduce you gradually to some different ways of thinking about your habits. So hopefully we're going to learn a little bit and we'll take it a bit further from here.